Welcome to Lessons in Leadership. Steve Adubato with my colleague Mary Gamba. We kick off the program with Elizabeth McCarthy, who's President and Chief Executive Officer of the Community FoodBank of New Jersey. Elizabeth, great to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
We got the website up right now. Tell everyone what the food bank is.
Community FoodBank of New Jersey is the largest food bank in New Jersey. We serve 15 out of the 21 counties. And we work with about 800 partners throughout the state, providing food to soup kitchens, to pantries, to child feeding programs, as well as increasingly and more importantly, kind of getting to some of the root causes of hunger. So really trying to work in health systems, trying to make sure that people have the nutritious food that they need, not just canned food of food banks of yesteryear.
So everyone go on the website, find out more, and be supportive if you can. In that spirit, Mary and I, in our leadership coaching, talk about all kinds of leadership tips and tools. And people will say, well, a not-for-profit, which the Community Food Bank of New Jersey is, well, it's not the same leadership as in business. Well, it's not the same, but it's pressure-filled and challenging. Talk about leadership in the not-for-profit world that you live in.
Yeah, I often tell people that. I'm like, a nonprofit is still a business. We don't pay some taxes, but we still are a business. I still have to balance a budget. The thing that I think is different is many of the people who work at the Community Food Bank have lived experience with food insecurity. We run a lot of reentry programs. So some people have, sometimes very recent prison history. It's a population that has been traumatized in some ways. So I do think the approach is a little different. I had a great mentor who taught me first about servant leadership. And I think that model has always been really important to me and really resonated for me working in social services, that I am really here to serve, of course, people in New Jersey with food insecurity, but also the staff of CFBNJ.
Well said. Mary.
Elizabeth, where are we right now when it comes to food insecurity? We talk a lot about leadership, fundraising, bringing in those necessary dollars, also the donations. What has changed? Where are we? I know right while COVID was really running rampant and we were in it, a lot of donations I'm sure were coming in, but now that we're a little bit away from it, talk about the latest trends in food insecurity and what more we need to be doing to address that challenge.
No, it's a great question because people were so connected to the issue during the pandemic. And I think, there's a lot going on in the world. Other issues have kind of taken the headlines. And unfortunately, food insecurity has gotten worse, not better. The cost of living has gone up. Wages haven't always kept pace. We see a lot of working people on lines at pantries because they kind of just can't make it to the next paycheck. And our donors are amazing. And so we have, we've been able to retain a lot of donors, but it has dropped somewhat since the pandemic, even as the numbers have gone up. So it's a challenge.
In many ways, Elizabeth, as the leader of the Community Food Bank of New Jersey and the work you've done before this, you're an advocate. Fair to say?
Absolutely.
Talk about the connection between leadership and advocacy.
Yeah, I think it's a very important connection, especially working in social services. We can do our best to, get food out to people, get programs out to people. We do some workforce development, but if we're not working with our government partners and letting them know what we're seeing on the front line, we're really missing the boat. So making sure that they know which policies matter and which things actually we think can have an impact. We do a lot of enrolling people in benefits, things like SNAP. But if there's really long turnaround times or there's blockades in the government, we have to tell them about that so that we can all work together to find a solution.
And SNAP, formerly known as food stamps, correct?
Yes.
Last question on my end before Mary jumps back in. Your passion for this work comes from where?
My family was always just really social justice oriented. Both of my parents, neither of them worked in nonprofits or any of that, but we always, as a family, I'm the youngest of 6 kids, we were always volunteering out on picket lines during the Cesar Chavez sort of movement. My parents just kind of had that orientation and I think passed that along to us.
And by the way, check out Cesar Chavez, the work they did with migrant workers and their working conditions, historically significant in the 1960s and changed things dramatically for the good. Mary, last question.
Yeah, my last question, Elizabeth, really goes back to leadership and wellness. I'd have to imagine that the people that work for you, the volunteers, getting the buy-in and everyone it's really challenging work. How do you encourage a culture of wellness with the work that you're doing when there are so many challenges that you are facing in that regard?
That is a great question, and it's something very top of mind for us. The work is hard. And it's often, especially coming up on the holidays, it's a very busy time for us. And so we really actively have some programs for people. We've done some guided meditation programs for staff, all optional, of course, but created a wellness day. We had just sort of a time for staff. Everyone kept saying, we really like our coworkers. We never have time to kind of just be together. And so we had a day and there were yoga workshops and other things that people could do. We kind of had one day where we were not delivering food. So we're always really trying to listen to staff, see what would help, what helps them in their own lives, and keep that wellness as a top priority.
Mary, you and I talked in another segment about intentionality. Elizabeth and our team are clearly intentionally focusing more on wellness and well-being in these challenging times. Elizabeth McCarthy, President and CEO, Community Food Bank of New Jersey. Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you both. It's great to see you.
You got to stay with us. We'll be right back. This edition of Lessons in Leadership is made possible by the Buccino Leadership Institute at Seton Hall University, Prager Metis, Valley Bank, the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 825, the North Ward Center, the New Jersey Sharing Network, Delta Dental of New Jersey, the Helix, Fedway Associates, Inc., the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Choose New Jersey, and Seton Hall University, showing the world what great minds can do since 1856.
This is Mary Gamba. If you want more leadership tips and tools, log on to stand-deliver.com. That's stand-deliver.com.
Promotional support for this edition of Lessons in Leadership with me, Steve Adubato, and my colleague Mary Gamba has been provided by NJ.com, NJBIA and New Jersey Business Magazine, CIANJ and Commerce Magazine, and the Meadowlands Chamber and Meadowlands Media. We're now joined by Michael Maron, who is President and CEO, Holy Name. Good to see you, Mike.
Great to see you, Steve. Mary, thanks for having me.
Hey, Mike, let's do this. First of all, Holy Name, one of the underwriters of our program at the Caucus Educational Corporation, our not-for-profit production company. Mike, let's start off with this. Graduate medical education. Talk about where we are and your involvement, Holy Name's involvement in graduate medical education, please.
Sure. Well, it's been a long time, actually many decades, since New Jersey's launched a new graduate medical education program. So Holy Name, the first into that. Back earlier this year, we received notice from ACGME, the accrediting body for graduate medical education, that Holy Name was approved to be our own institutional sponsor. What that means is we host our own program. We have clinical teaching affiliations, but the program is ours. So one way Holy Name could have entered the foray of graduate medical education is just sign a deal with Mount Sinai and become an extension of Mount Sinai. But if something ever happened between us and Mount Sinai, the program would end, right? It would get pulled and it would go to some new affiliate of Mount Sinai. So we wanted it ingrained into the fabric of Holy Name, just like our School of Nursing, which is now 99 years old in 2 weeks. We want to make sure that graduate medical education joins that fiber base of Holy Name and lives for another 100 years. So we received our institutional sponsorship.
I'm going to follow up on this, Mike. We've talked to many of your colleagues and competitors in the hospital world. And yes, there is competition at times. And along those lines, Mike, I've asked this question of them, and I want to ask it of you. In the face of COVID, March 2025, it'll be 5 years, believe it or not, since COVID became so real in our lives. To what degree, if at all, Mike, do you believe medical education has changed and needs to change in light of COVID?
It hasn't changed at all, but it absolutely needs to change. So part of the reason why it hasn't changed is because the oversight bodies and the licensing exam that all physicians have to take when they graduate medical school, and then for their clinical rounds, and then when they finish their residencies, the boards that they have to take in whatever discipline that they're going to specialize in, those haven't changed. And so the programs have to have a certain pass rate to maintain your status and your attractability to new students, new residents. So you teach to the test.
How about Mike? How about teaching to the reality of where medicine is today? Please go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Steve. I think, look, all the things that are taught are valuable and they're good.
Yes.
The problem is there's so much more, right? And we saw that with the Gold Foundation, right? Humanism in medicine.
The great Arnold Gold.
The great Arnold Gold. So how do you teach humanism in medicine to young physicians in training? How do you teach informatics, right? The application and the growth between computer systems, technology, and soon to be artificial intelligence. How do you train these physicians the limitations, when to know when artificial intelligence isn't being accurate? It's a whole nother class and skill set they don't have. It's not being taught.
Mary, as you jump in here, how about teaching, if remote medicine is going to continue to be a part of our lives, why not actually teach how to be more effective as a communicator in a remote setting as a physician? That's just what's in my head. Mary, jump in.
Agreed completely there, Steve. And Mike, I'd love to do a pivot completely. I would love to talk more about Haiti. We've had you on previously. We've talked about the great work and your passion, your commitment. Let our audience know who maybe doesn't know where that passion comes from, the work you're doing in Haiti, and where are we now, and where are we going in the next few months?
And Mike, the hospital there, Hôpital Sacré Coeur?
Correct.
Go ahead.
So I just returned this weekend from Haiti. I was there last week. Hôpital Sacré Coeur is a 250-bed general hospital in northern Haiti in a town called Milo, right at the foothills of some of the most historic landmarks in Haiti, the Citadel, the Sanssouci Palace, the Cathedral of the Sacred Heart is there. That all big historic buildings in Haiti. Haiti obviously is plagued with a lot of political unrest, a lot of civil unrest, poverty, the most impoverished nation in the Western Hemisphere. Unfortunately, none of that has changed. What we have found, we took over Hôpital Sacré Coeur just after the earthquake struck Haiti in January of 2010. And we have been helping support, guide it, run it, providing advice to the team there since then on a weekly basis. So both intellectual input, but also financial. And Holy Name's been helping foot the bill and add stability to the region. Hôpital Sacré Coeur, 250 beds, runs at about 150% occupancy on any given day. And people often ask me, how's that possible if you have 250 beds? Well, because in those bed counts are pediatric beds and bassinets. And just like I saw in this trip that I returned from, the NICU, the pediatric ward, the newborn baby and bassinet wards were packed, and oftentimes 2 or 3 babies per bed, per bassinet. I've seen adults share beds when necessary in different areas and different units because the bed shortage is there. So it's quite easy to hit 150% occupancy. It services a population of a little over 2 million people. So think about that in terms of the U.S., 250-bed hospital serving a little over 2 million people. Give you an example, look at all the hospital beds in Bergen County, much needed. We're always very busy, us in Hackensack, Inglewood Valley, significantly many more, and there's only 1 million people that we service. Right. So it's quite a difference.
Hey, Mike, I've asked you this before, but there'll be video that shows Haiti, the work in Haiti and Hôpital Sacré Coeur, the hospital there. But I have to ask you, Mike, and again, we've talked about this so many times off camera and on. How do you believe the experience in Haiti has impacted and/or changed you as a healthcare executive/leader?
Oh, tremendous impact. So what we've learned from Haiti, which was a big part of Holy Name's response to COVID in 2020, necessity is the mother of all invention, right? It's the mother of innovation. And what we learned in Haiti is you have to innovate. You have to deal with very limited resources. And if you're going to take providing healthcare to a much needed population, that necessity drives you. So what does that mean? You have to generate your own electricity. You have to create your own oxygen. You have to drill your own wells to get access to clean water. You have to deal with your own sanitation. You have to try to recruit and retain doctors in the medical community, which means you have to provide housing, and then you have to provide education for their children. Otherwise, they're going to leave. And then you realize once you're doing that, your obligation into the community to provide housing, to provide fresh, clean water, to provide education for the children, all amplifies. And so it's not just coming in saying, no, our sector of the economic engine of Haiti is just healthcare, and others are going to provide other areas, other disciplines are going to provide agriculture. We have a large farm. We grow our own food. We have our own livestock to provide food, not just for our employees and the patients that we serve, but then to the community.
P.S. New Jersey has one of the largest Haitian populations in the nation. And I often think, Mary, if healthcare is so challenging in the United States of America with all the technology and as advanced as we are, imagine when Mike is talking about Haiti. Mary, last question on your end, because I have one about AI. Is that where you're going, Mary?
It's not. So you can hold on to that one. I was just thinking, usually we're in the same, and I went there for half a second, but then just truly listening to what Mike was just talking about. How do you create a culture, Mike? You just talked about all of this work. It's work. You're saving lives, you're changing lives, you're providing, but how do you maintain a culture where you're coaching, mentoring, leading, providing the resources so that your physician leaders, the administrative folks that are making all this happen, how do you create a culture that really gets that buy-in to be like, yeah, I know this is a lot of work, but it's going to be worth it?
Well, you celebrate the wins. And there's a lot of them, right? And so when you find that the people who made the commitment, Dr. Pravil, who's our CEO there, and he's been at the hospital now for 25 years, wonderful human being, goes through an incredible amount of trials and tribulations down there, is constantly being attacked because he's a leader. He's a visible leader within the community, not just within the hospital. But he keeps pushing forward. And sometimes he starts to lose hope, lose faith, but then you take him out into the community, which I did on this trip, and you introduce him to these people who look at you and say, if it wasn't for the hospital, if it wasn't for what you were doing, I'd be dead. I wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be having this conversation. You have no idea how meaningful, how powerful you saving my life. I am eternally grateful for you. Those expressions motivate you. And I could just see his face light up. He wasn't even aware, because he doesn't get out in the community as often as he should because he's so consumed with the challenges at the hospital, that the impact was there and it ripples out. And that's why our area is so calm compared to other parts of Haiti, because the people realize the value of the hospital. They don't want to do anything to jeopardize it. Yeah, their life is very hard, but it is significantly better than it would be otherwise if we weren't there providing these services.
Important work. And again, go on the website to find out more about the work in Haiti. Mike, before I let you go, real quick, 1 minute or less, AI and healthcare.
Yeah. Big role. It's coming. It's currently in that state of infancy where it's being overplayed and overstated a little bit because it's the sort of hot buzzword like, oh, you got to have AI. And so AI itself is evolving in very rapidly, much quicker than people thought. But these large language learning modules, which is the cornerstone of AI, have an incredible impact in terms of assisting with diagnosing images and all radiographic images. So you can use AI to scan other like images. You can use AI to facilitate evaluations of individuals, taking a whole bunch of variables, lab, radiology, histories and physicals, your specific demographic, within a certain age range, gender range, pumping it into the system and very, very quickly getting back saying, based on 65-year-old men with this, and this, here's the common, with these symptoms, here are the most common, disease categories that would be applying. So you accelerate a physician's ability to diagnose and treat on a incredibly accelerated scale. That's the first round. And then beyond, it's just going to be amazing.
We'll continue the conversation about AI and healthcare with a whole range of healthcare executives, Mike included. Hey, Mike, thank you so much for joining us once again.
Thank you for having me. Real honor to be here.
You got it. We're right back right after this.
This is Mary Gamba. If you want more leadership tips and tools, log on to stand-deliver.com. That's stand-deliver.com.
Promotional support for this edition of Lessons in Leadership with me, Steve Adubato, and my colleague Mary Gamba has been provided by NJ.com, NJBIA and New Jersey Business Magazine, CIANJ and Commerce Magazine, and the Meadowlands Chamber and Meadowlands Media. Welcome back to Lessons in Leadership. Steve Adubato with my colleague Mary Gamba. Hey, Mary, it's one of the things I wanted to talk about. It's so interesting. We get to do this on Lessons in Leadership, not on our other public policy programs or even one-on-one with the Caucus Educational Corporation. But I want to talk about this. As we speak, the president of Rutgers University, and I got a Rutgers hat right here.
Your props never cease to amaze me.
Yeah, but I graduated from Rutgers. Again, the program is supported by our friends at Seton Hall. And when there's a rivalry between Seton Hall and Rutgers in basketball, I always root for Seton Hall. But that's not the point. The point is that the president of Rutgers University, Jonathan Holloway, is stepping aside. He has a background as a professor of African American history. He's a brilliant scholar. He's only 56 years old. Not that old for a college president. He's stepping down. And one of the things he said in stepping down is that, check this out. He has concerns for his family's safety in the environment that he's in, the college presidents. He said, I don't want to be in an environment where I need to worry about my family's protection because I didn't bargain for that. When I'm in public, I have to have security with me. Now, why am I saying this? It's because in certain leadership positions, and it's not just college presidents, you and I were talking about this yesterday, it could be all kinds of jobs. Mm-hmm. There are some who believe that being a college president with all the pressures and the challenges, I don't mean just raising money. I'm talking about protests on campus in connection with the war in Gaza as we speak. I'm talking about having to testify before Congress about those things, about strikes that go on with faculty members, students, whatever. A whole range of issues going on that make certain leadership jobs, in the minds of some, virtually impossible. Because I have this ridiculous prop floating around, everything is figure-outable. Do you believe, Mary, for leaders in certain positions, and that could also include being president of the United States, that it's virtually impossible and it's not figure-outable?
Everything is.
Elvin, get ready to come in because I need your perspective as well. Go ahead.
Everything is figure-outable in theory. On paper, that sounds all good and well. But at the end of the day, I hate that expression. At the end of the day, we are all human beings. And if it's taking a toll on your family, if it's taking a toll on your mental well-being, if you're losing sleep over those things that are figure-outable, and if you feel like you are in danger, you brought up the president, of course, there's been unfortunate assassination attempts. So
the programs before the presidential election, 2 attempts on former President Trump's life. We hope as we speak, this is not dated, meaning that there are no more for him or Vice President Harris, again, before the election, or any other public figure. Please, Mary. And Elvin and Frank, please prepare to come in. Just come on in. Go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, come on in, guys. But no, I truly believe that as you move up in leadership professions and you're in a leadership position, you have more responsibility. You've got a bigger audience. If you have a bigger audience, you have a greater chance that there's going to be somebody in that orbit that's not going to like the decisions that you're making. So that is really tough and very challenging. And especially if you feel like it's becoming dangerous for you and your family, sometimes it is the right decision to step down.
Elvin, our director, Frank Brown, our audio engineer, both excellent leaders. We often use their insight and perspective in these conversations. Elvin, do you believe some leadership jobs, roles, be it a college president and by the way, Dr. Holloway's going on sabbatical for a year, then coming back to Rutgers to teach a class in African American history. He's like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I don't want this gig anymore. Do you believe some leadership gigs are simply impossible?
I don't think some leadership jobs are impossible. I just think at the end of the day, you have to think about your mental health. You have to think about the role that that job is playing in your personal life, your family life. And at some points, it's just not worth it. You know, like I could be working anywhere I really want to be working at, but at the end of the day, I'm thinking about my wife, I'm thinking about my kids, and the job that I have and the jobs that I choose. I always think about my family first. And that's how I make my decisions. And maybe that's why he made his decision. Maybe he just needed, it was just too much of a demand on his personal life that the money and the job just didn't mean anything to him.
Frank, at what point does a job as a leader or any professional, in your view, quote, become something that's just not worth it?
Really, with what we're talking about now, first and foremost.
By the way, he's not the only college president who stepped aside. Many have said, I'm out, or got pushed out. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Frank.
Yeah, first and foremost, you got to deal with what works for you, the person who has to go into the trenches every day. And second, your family. If it's not working for those two dynamics, yourself, your family, then you have to make some choices. These are obviously choices that come about. Some of them are you have time to think them out. Some of them are spur of the moment. But you can't walk around trying to be some type of martyr that's going to fight folks that you don't see, you don't know where they are, where they lurk, and expect to be able to be there for your family if you're getting these kinds of threats or things that are not working, and because you will not be able to be an effective leader.
Mary, Frank and Elvin's perspective is so interesting and valuable on this, but what about it? I often that other sign somewhere, April, I have the one that says grit somewhere. I don't know. You don't have to get it. But Mary, is this about, well, Dr. Holloway just doesn't have the grit? That's ridiculous.
Absolutely
just tough
not.
it out.
We all have, and I see Elvin shaking his head as well, we all have a runway. We all have a threshold. And if it gets to that point that we're at a tipping point, it's okay to tap out. Again, we are human beings. You give what you can for as long as you can give it, but it is okay to give yourself some grace when it's time to step down.
Elvin, not about toughness, is it?
Not at all. Not at all. And I just think in this day and age, people are realizing, especially after COVID, family is more important, and your personal mental health is more important than anything else.
So do you think COVID has changed the equation?
Oh, most definitely. Steve, most definitely. And Frank knows this. Before COVID, I traveled 2 to 3 weeks out of the month. Never home, always on the road, job after job after job after job. COVID came and I was like, you know what? I miss my family. I love my family. And I'd rather be home with my family watching my kids. Money isn't everything. Tightness, let's stop spending so much.
And who told you that?
Our means.
And who was saying that when you were traveling? Who was telling you that?
You were, Frank. You were. Because Frank saw it. I was always on the road, always.
Frank's always a great mentor and advisor, and we call it a consigliere. Well, that's in the mob, and that has nothing to do with the mob. I'm sorry. I don't even know.
No, we're out of time, Steve.
I can't end on, well, I didn't mean to do that. But you are a consigliere, which means a great advisor for Frank, Elvin, Mary, Scarlett, April, Sylvester on the back end. Great job, Lessons in Leadership. See you next time. This edition of Lessons in Leadership is made possible by the Buccino Leadership Institute at Seton Hall University, Prager Metis, Valley Bank, the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 825, the North Ward Center, the New Jersey Sharing Network, Delta Dental of New Jersey, the Helix, Fedway Associates, Inc., the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, Choose New Jersey, and Seton Hall University, showing the world what great minds can do since 1856.
This is Mary Gamba. If you want more leadership tips and tools, log on to stand-deliver.com. That's stand-deliver.com.
Promotional support for this edition of Lessons in Leadership with me, Steve Adubato, and my colleague Mary Gamba has been provided by NJ.com, NJBIA and New Jersey Business Magazine, CIANJ and Commerce Magazine, and the Meadowlands Chamber and Meadowlands Media.